Welcome back. This is Tom, and this is Tom's Radio Room Show. And we have right here a quick charge rechargeable soldering iron kit. This was sent to me by IsoTip for me to do a review of, and we're going to do that review right now. So let me show you the actual device here. Like I said, it's rechargeable wireless, I'll call it, soldering iron. Here it is right here, and it comes with the soldering iron, two tips, and the charging cradle, and you just drop that in there and let it charge. It's got some spring-loaded contacts down in there, which mate with these contacts here. That's how it works. And it takes, I think, from a almost dead charge to a full charge, takes 4 or 5 hours. And what they recommend is that you typically just leave it in the charger so that it's always fully charged and ready to go. The features is this is the button. You press this button to engage the power to this soldering tip, and you also can rotate this switch to put it in a lock position, so that if you put this in your tool bag or something like that, it doesn't accidentally get turned on and burn a hole through your tool bag, and you wouldn't want that to happen. I didn't see, let me see, no, I didn't see exactly how many watts it is, but I did a little research and I saw some indications that it's equivalent to a 40-watt soldering iron, which for your typical wiring in printed circuit board, that's all you really need. Actually, it's more than adequate. I use sometimes on circuit boards, I use a 10-watt soldering iron or a 15. The beauty of this type of device is that you have no cord. So if you're out working on an antenna, coax cable or something like that, this is ideal because you don't have to take a extension cord out, haul it up on your roof to work on your antenna. This is totally portable. That's a big advantage of that. Now, let me give you a little history of my experiences with this type device. I initially bought one of these, not this brand, some Chinese knockoff. It wasn't at Harbor Freight. It was a store like that existed 30 years ago or something like that. They had a Chinese version of this. It was really a knockoff, because this particular design, I believe from my research, has been around for a while. Been around for quite a while, and other companies, such as in China, have attempted to duplicate. Well, the one I bought never worked. It just never worked. The tip never really got that hot. You could melt solder with it. That's all you could do. You could melt solder, a real fine gauge solder. You couldn't solder anything. It never got hot. The case itself, the molded case, had gaps in it where the plastic didn't meet correctly. It was really a piece of junk. I never really used it to do any soldering job. So I got burnt out about this type of tool. I just said, it don't work, which was a mistake on my part. So this is what I went to. And this was given to me by a friend that had a couple of these. He was kind of collected these, and I told him about my experiences, and he says, this is what you should use. This is again, wireless, and it uses propane gas that you inject down in here. This is similar to the connectors on propane lighters and stuff like that. So you get one of these little bottles of propane, you shove that in there, and you load up this little chamber with propane gas, which it's got a little window here but you can see if there's any gas in there. And of course, there's no gas in there. And that's one of the shortcomings of this, is over time, the gas will leak out. When you go to use it, it doesn't have any gas in it, and you've used all your gas up, so you can't use it. The biggest drawback, and it works very well, it does a super job of heating up the item that you want to solder together. It does a super job, except here's one problem. See that little nozzle hole right there? That's the vent. That is where the propane is escaping. Not the propane, but the burnt propane is escaping. And if you aim that, like you say you had, well, I'll just use this for an example. Say you were trying to solder this right here, or you were down inside of a circuit. If you happen to accidentally, which I've had to me many of times, aim that towards another wire or a circuit board or something, it's putting out super hot air, and it will damage whatever it's pointing at. So you have to be very careful of this, that you don't do that, or you don't, you're not soldering something and say I got it turned down so it's facing down, and I solder like this, which number one, I shouldn't be holding it like this, then the gas escaping is going to burn this finger. So even though I like this, it's very convenient, it's a bit dangerous. And the fact that you have to have propane gas on hand to refill it. So that's what I've been using for doing my outside work, so that I can just take this outside, I don't have to hook it to anything, and I'm there and ready to go. So I was really excited when Isotip sent me this and giving me an opportunity to see that these things work. If a real reputable company has one that works. Oh, the other thing it has a little lamp. This is the old style filament lamp. Again, this design is quite old, and I guess they've just stayed with it because it works. So you got a little lamp there so that it'll illuminate the area that you're working on. And then you can get many different tips. I think you maybe have, let's see here on the side here, here's some of the tips that you can get. There's over a dozen types of tips you can get. You can get cutting tips and stuff like that. The tips, let me pull this tip out to remove it. And of course, you have to wait till it's cooled down. Just pull on it and it comes out. And then to insert it, you come in at a kind of an angle. You push it down in these holes. I can't see what I'm doing. And then you push and tilt back. Make sure it's secure, and there you go. It's ready to go. So that's the interchangeable tips. Now, I'm going to try something, and I'll probably burn myself because I'm watching my monitor to see what's on camera and going to try to do something. I'm going to try, and this is not my normal pad for soldering. It's just something I have close by on my desk. I normally don't do any soldering in my office, which is where I'm right now. I usually do it down in my workshop, or like I say, outside where I'm working on a antenna or something like that. So here's my little holding rig, and I've got a piece of, I think that's maybe 18 gauge wire, and I just got two pieces of wire twisted together, and I'm going to attempt to use this for the first time. I have not used this at all. I've charged it, and that's about it. So you're going to be seeing live me using this brand new Isotip soldering iron. Now, please don't critique my soldering capabilities. I actually went to soldering school when I was about 15 years old. Unfortunately, it was really not a soldering school. It was at a tech school, and it was one of those classes that you had to take in order to graduate. And I went to tech school for a while before I went to college. So the instructor was basically a guy that took attendance. That's all he did. And then he says, okay, here are the projects that you need to do, that you need to solder up or whatever, and I'm going to grade you. That was it. There was no instructions, nothing. That was it. So I didn't learn much from that class. So I really don't have any formal soldering education, shall we say. I just play it by ear. So don't critique my soldering capability. So anyway, I've got some liquid solder flux. See if I can drop some of that on here. I've already attempted to clean the wire a little bit before I started to show. So we're going to take this out of the lock mode, put it to the use mode, and then we're going to press the button and see if this is going to melt. Yeah, I can smell it burning. Okay, so that should have prepared that wire by using that solder flux and cleaner. It cleans the oxidation off too. And then I've got my 0.04 solder right here, which I will lay against. First I'll heat the wire, and then I'll lay, and you can see that my hands are very shaky. But you can see, well, maybe you can see. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Probably I should have zoomed in earlier. And I'll move this over a little bit. Okay, it's done a very good job of soldering this. I think it's a number 18 gauge wire. No problem whatsoever. So, and it did it very quickly. So, if this is cooled down, which it has, I'm going to take this out of my fixture. Oops. And very secure solder joint. So, I did a pretty good job with that. Now, the next thing I'm going to try is we're going to give it a test here. And let's see, I'm going to put this in here. And we've got two pieces of, I think this is 12 gauge wire, and I should have, what I should have done is I should have made a loop on these two wires to lock them together, but I didn't do that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. And I put a little solder flux cleaning solution on this. Try to clean off some of the oxidation. There we go. And now the other thing is, this thing cooled down very quick. It's not cool. It's still a little warm, but it's I can touch it. So it cools down pretty rapidly. So if you happen to set it down someplace where you shouldn't, it'll cool down pretty rapidly. So now we're going to attempt, and now we got a close-up. We're going to attempt this heavy gauge wire. This is heavy gauge, and normally you wouldn't use a soldering iron this wattage to solder something this heavy. You'd probably use a 100-watt soldering iron, or even the dreaded soldering gun, which I have a couple of those that you can do some damage with those things, so I tend not to use them. Let me see if I can change the angle on this a little bit so it'll show up a little bit and get things lined up. Yeah, I don't have things lined up. Again, don't critique my soldering techniques. There we go. So we're just going to splice these two together. Like I say, I should have interlocked them, but I didn't. So here we go. I'm going to push the button. Going to melt that soldering paste, or in this case, liquid solder. And my little fixture is not holding these wires very good. You can see this thing really gets hot in a hurry. Yeah, let's apply some solder here. Okay, unfortunately my fixture is not holding the two pieces of wire that well, so they're kind of getting away from me. Let me cool it down a little bit. Okay, it's not a very good solder joint, and that's my fault. I should have interlocked these two, and I didn't. So they're just butted up side by side. And let me turn this a little bit. So there's the solder right there. And let's just see. It was probably still pretty hot. Yes, it is a little toasty. Let's wait a few minutes here. Let that cool down. It does get the wires really hot. And I was kind of on those two pieces of wire a long time because I was really struggling trying to get the solder down there. So, see if I can get this off without burning myself. And need to see, there's the solder joint I made. Like I say, it wasn't that good. That was my fault. I should have interlocked these. But it holds fine. So I would, if I was going to do this for real, I don't think I do anything for real. I would interlock these two wires and then solder it, and then that would give me a nice tight joint there that wouldn't come apart. It would have the strength of the wires themselves being interlocked plus the solder making the connection. So anyway, it appears that this soldering iron does even a good job on heavy gauge like this. Now this is typically, you wouldn't have this heavy gauge wire on your in your antenna system, but you could have, which I don't have right here, is you could have stranded wire, coax stranded wire that would be equivalent to this heavy gauge wire that you wanted to say put a connector on, and it looks like it could do that with no problem. So I don't really see any problem with this. Let me just something I didn't do, and let me see if I can illustrate it here. The light. Let me turn some lights off here, and of course my camera adjusts for that, so I don't really get it dark. Oh yeah, look at the light it puts out. So it puts out plenty of light. I got to watch that. It's hot. So the light works well. Turn the lights back on here again. And again, this is the charger that comes with it. Now, one thing that I was a little disappointed in, this is the only thing, and it's one of those little nits, is when you put the soldering iron in the charger and you plug it in, I don't have it plugged in right now, there is no indication of the fact that it's charging. No indication whatsoever. So you have no indication. They have and this is the model 770, which is their least expensive model. They have other models, and I don't know if it listed on here or not. No, they don't list the other models. You have other models that are very similar to this. They're a little higher wattage, and the charging station does have an indicator light that tells you that the soldering iron needs charging, it is charging, and it's fully charged. I wish they had that in the least expensive model, which this is, but they don't. Even if it was just a LED that was on when this thing was plugged in and charging, so that you would know that you have it plugged in to your AC and the charger is making contact with the contacts down inside the charger and it's charging. Because theoretically you could set that down there and for some reason it might not be making full contact and it's not really charging. So it would be nice if they had a little indicator light telling you at least that it's charging. That's all I need. That's all I would need. So that's the only drawback I see of this. And like I say, this is the quick charge rechargeable soldering iron kit, totally portable. You can take this anywhere, and this even says right here, temperature temp of 900 degrees in less than 10 seconds. And here it says, now I don't know why you didn't notice it before, power rating is 25 watts. It's a 25 watt soldering iron. I thought it was somebody in another video said it was 40. I guess maybe they had another model. That could be. So it's 25 watts, and it can heat up to 900 degrees. 90 degrees. Oh, brother. 900 degrees. So that's the specs on it. I give it a thumbs up. You can get these off of Amazon. I will put one in my Amazon store. I don't think I have one there right now. Anyway, that's the show. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.